Hashtag we are all outsiders. Greetings and welcome. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din and I'm coming at you with another Young Justice Outsiders episode review. This time it's season 3's episode 19 titled Elder Wisdom. Listen to your elders, kids. It might just save your life. It's more than just a good idea, it's the law. Where we see our favorite couple of characters interacting, Lex Luthor and G. Gordon Godfrey, at a UN climate conference in the country of Bundasa. That's not at all a weird word to say. Now, Bundasa was actually a place introduced in I think it was Black Canary and Oracle issue. It was a Birds of Prey comic, basically. And the leader in charge of this place, named, what was his name? Simon Mbara, the big black dude sitting there in the back, was actually a ruthless dictator. So, I mean, you have Bad Samaritan and Mumbara flanking him. It's just a coalition of evil. And I love the fact that if you know anything about comics, or if you research into them after watching Young Justice, so many things are just like, oh, okay, evil, 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 and then there's Garth. like Garth, you've got to be the only one who'd be good enough to just, stand there and have to deal with these bunch of punks for the most part. Because he's really just dealing with a whole bunch of bad times. And, we come to find out Troia isn't down there with the rest of them, mostly because Lex Luthor makes her skin crawl. But she's in touch with Diana, talking about the fact that she misses being with her sister in arms. I don't know if they're actually sisters in this continuity, but how Cassandra Sandsmark, also misses her mentor. And, just how she's really having a tough time dealing with all this diplomatic BS that always seems to go on whenever she's dealing with Lex Luthor. But we have this little bit of a photo op going on outside, only for Garth to be ambushed by these arrows, one of which pierces his neck and seems to incapacitate him. We also see a psychic user outside of Troia's door, who manages to incapacitate her in such a way, or at least kind of immobilize her to a certain degree, while this assassin comes bursting in through the windows to take her down. But we see that we actually had people inside protecting her, namely the outsiders. Halo and Tara are inside doing their best to defend Troia. We also see a massive attack going on outside as well. But, Garfield Logan, Beast Boy comes in to call his outsiders to arms. And, Lex Luthor takes this opportunity to ask the general if he has the authorization to call in the Justice League, which naturally he gives with his life being in danger. So we have Kid Flash going through, punching all the bad guys, knocking them out. We have the newly appointed El Dorado, Eduardo Jr. coming in to save the general, in certain moments. Wonder Girl, Cassandra Sandsmark, taking out a few of the bad guys as well, and dealing with the telepath inside. You also have, Miss Martian engaging in a bit of a psychic battle. So while Halo tries to get Troia to safety, Tara does her best in order to pull out her best earthbending abilities with a few pebbles in order to take out the would-be assassin. But Halo goes rushing in order to help out Tara, only to get her neck cut and almost get her head chopped off, which, Miss Martian even brings up the fact that, we're not quite sure if you'd been able to survive that, getting your head, fully chopped off. So that becomes a bit of a question as to how well Halo actually might have actually been able to survive that little brush with death. But Martian manages to overpower the psychic user, and we find out she had one of the control chips. So another meta teen who had been forced into trying to kill people against their will. But with the psychic user down for the count, Troy is able to recover and dex the assassin a good one. And with 3 against 1, basically, the assassin flees. We also have Beast Boy save Garth from being shot point blank, as well as a little assist from Bart. Lots of people's B names. Bart comes in, catches one of the bolts before it gets to Garth. Unfortunately, it manages to explode right in his face, but his metahuman physiology will allow him to heal. But with Garth finally being up and ready to, throw down, his water abilities, his aquakinetic abilities, puts him fully in range to just do some damage. And before Gordon Godfrey can be hit by a stray bolt, in comes the Flash in order to save him and tie up the rest of the bad guys. With him kind of, calling into the Justice League, saying that he handled it with a bit of help from the outsiders. But Eduardo takes a little bit of offense to this, saying that who was helping who at the end of the day. But Garfield calls out that, hey, we're not here to take credit, we're just here to save people. But Troy notes the fact that it's odd that the league was even able to get in on this, but Lex, never missing an opportunity, steps in to say that he got permission from the general to call in the league, saying that it's only because of him calling in the league through the proper channels that lives were able to be saved, not these young, reckless children, catching a lot of shade here. And, he's just like, yeah, it's because of the Flash, who I personally called in, my personal buddy, the Flash. Have you seen him? Have you heard? And, while Barry doesn't brush this aside because he doesn't want to make the league look bad, he does know what Lex is up to, and he doesn't appreciate being used like this. So, while the outsiders are kind of put under scrutiny, they have no choice but to retreat because, Lex managed to best them in terms of this little outing. So while Miss Martian proceeds to talk with the metahuman girl named Lila Briggs, who in the comics is named Looker, and as an actual member of the Outsiders in the comic books. A metahuman with the who gains psychic abilities and later down the line becomes a vampire. And during the New 52, even that was just her whole background, that she was a vampire. So a very interesting backstory with her, and I actually do find myself wondering if she'll have a bigger role in season 4. But, she talks things over with Miss Martian. Miss Martian says she'll get her some help and tries to empathize with her and everything. And when Garfield talks with the team about the whole situation, how it felt like a setup, in comes Looker to say, yes, you were most definitely set up. And we're shown that the 2 assassins leading the charge was Lady Shiva, who had gone after Troya, and oh god, I am just blanking on her name because I want to call her Scandal Savage, like, so much. Cassandra Savage, like, I want to call her Scandal, but it's not Scandal, and I'm disappointed by that because I loved Secret 6. And if you don't know what Secret 6 is, you and I can't be friends anymore, basically. But, Cassandra calls into another character named Cassandra in this episode, Sandsmark and Savage. CS, but god, it's everywhere. Like, so many comic book characters' names just kind of overlap. But Cassandra Savage gets in touch with Lex Luthor, and wonders if they failed in their mission because they didn't manage to take out Troya and and Tempest, who seemed to be their primary targets, because they were going after them hard. But Lex notes that while he would have liked to see his biggest opposition in the UN been taken down out of the picture permanently, he is satisfied with the results, as he had an opportunity to kind of diminish the popularity of the Outsiders, although they're still trending positive, as noted by See, I'm still trying to call her Scandal, Cassandra. But she does note that they even managed to capture Looker, meaning that they'll know that Lex was involved with this little attempt. But Lex brushes this off, saying that knowing and proving are two very different things. So while Cassandra, I'm saying, like, the names just overlap, as Wonder Girl brings Looker into the youth center in Taos, everyone kind of talks about the recent events. With us seeing Halo is still kind of trying to brush off talking with Brianna, and Miss Martian even comes out and talks to Halo and says, like, look, I know you're going through a lot of things, but you need to talk to someone. Either me, Artemis, Jace, anyone. Just someone. Until then, you're off the team. So, Miss Martian is putting her foot down. She's been very fair to Halo up until this point, but Halo is just really keeping all of those emotions in check, and Miss Martian isn't probing her or anything, and it's just like, look, you can keep your secrets, but you'll be a liability if we allow you to proceed like this. And speaking of which, Eduardo Sr. comes out and starts to kind of chastise his boy, saying like, hey, look, I know I agreed to let you do this thing, but seeing how things are going, how you almost kind of caused an international incident, how Kid Flash got hurt on this mission, how you're being targeted by Lex Luthor, I don't know if I'm down with all of this. And it's this big argument between the two Eduardos, and Junior just decides to storm off because he feels that his dad isn't being fair. This is something that he's really impassioned about. And the team just kind of single file lines out with Beast Boy just saying, hey, that's just how the way things are. So as they get ready for a training mission, Dr. Jace comes in to actually talk to Halo about the fact that unfortunately her and her mentor haven't found a cure for her basically her cell degeneration that's going on every time she uses her powers or just exists in general. And we even have a moment where Geoforce tries to talk to Halo about the fact that she's kind of been ignoring him and what's actually going on with her. But she, for the most part, just kind of brushes it off, having flashbacks to the recent events of everything, that she kissed Harper Row, she, ended up not directly, but kind of indirectly caused the deaths of Geoforce and Tara's parents. And not just that, the fact that she's dying as well. All this stuff is really just kind of piling up for her. And Jace does her best to kind of comfort Brianna, but it's obvious that he's having trouble with all of this. He gave Halo her space, but now he's just become a little too concerned about the situation. And as the team gets ready to get some training in comes Helena Sandsmark, Cassie's mother, Wonder Girl's mother, who, in the comics, we even actually saw her in Young Justice Legacy, the video game, but she also had a tendency to kind of butt heads with her daughter in terms of her superheroism. So, of all the characters who would be involved with it, this is some primo choicing. Like, the writing team always manages to get in the right characters for the right things. But you also have Eduardo Sr. as well as Jay Garrick, which, with certain losses he's had in his life, I'm not surprised that he's here as well. But Beast Boy, redirects their attention to this whole situation with this little girl who, has spotted this robotic monkey apparently stealing from her dad and no one believing her. But Beast Boy notices this as one of Ivo's robotic monkeys that we saw all the way back in the day. Like, yo, but Jay isn't done. He really wants to hash this whole situation out. But Beast Boy says, look, Jay, I respect you, dude, but I'm an emancipated minor, which is an actual thing. So Beast Boy can do basically whatever, because of his whole situation with Mento, who was not a fit guardian for him. And Virgil as well as Jaime are both 18, so they can do whatever at this point. But Cassandra, still a young teen. Eduardo's also a young teen. I think he's 17 at this point, as well as Bart. Bart Allen is still a minor as well, and Jay is his legal guardian, so they have to stay behind for the most part and hopefully work this whole situation out. I like the fact that Garfield kind of leaves it to their discretion on how they handle this whole situation. He doesn't force them to get this all under control. He's just like, okay, well, that's just the way it has to be. I'm not going to fight against this. You guys work this out amongst yourself, and hopefully you can come to a good conclusion for the most part. So, Beast Boy isn't, babying them about this whole situation. So they set off, they meet up with the young girl's father, who says that she's been missing, ever since earlier in the day. Meanwhile, as everyone kind of hashes it out, the parents start to feel that maybe they're doing this for glory, that they're inciting various incidents and stuff along those lines. Meanwhile, Brianna is talking things over with Halo and just really wanting her to actually open up to him about this whole situation. So ultimately, she only fesses up to the fact that she kissed Harper Row, and Brianna, they kind of hash it out to see if she has feelings for Harper and stuff like that, but he does actually want to work through it with Halo for the most part. Meanwhile, Helena does talk things over with her daughter, saying, look, I was okay with it when you were much more on the DL about this whole situation, but now that you're out in the open, you have a massive target on your back, especially as the protege of Wonder Woman, and I don't want to see anything happen to you. And Jay even makes the comment with all that he's lost, especially with the loss of, Jason Todd, of what was the name? Tula as well. There's some kids down there who just, lost their lives a little too early, and he notes Wally most of all. Wally should have had a good life ahead of him, but he feels that his life was cut short too fast, and he doesn't want to see that happen with Bart. Meanwhile, we have Halo call out to Tara, saying that there's something important she needs to tell her. So, while the other members of the Outsiders actually stumble upon a warehouse full of Lex Luthor's old spider bots, also from Young Justice Legacy, just we're really having a lot of callbacks to that. But it's about time, because a lot of things were only ever shown in Outsiders, like even the death of Tula was shown there as well. So, and the hero Marmaduke, that whole situation as well. So, lots of story elements that were deeply embedded in that video game as well. But they end up being ambushed by Ivo and all of his robotic monkeys. And we also see that he's taken the girl hostage. Meanwhile, Halo does actually end up fessing up to both Brianna and Tara that she, Gabrielle Dow was the one who allowed the assassins in order to slay their parents, and she knew for a good while now, at least a month, I think it is, real time, and she just lays it out all on the table. And while Brianna seems a little bit, kind of shaken up about the whole situation, it goes a little bit deeper than that. Whereas, it's obvious Brianna is taking this whole situation very hard. He has to process everything that happened here, and he runs off to his room. Tara, almost kind of has a panic attack for the most part. She starts breathing really heavy and looking around. Her vision gets blurred. She's really freaking out. And ultimately, the one conclusion that she comes to is just to text to Deathstroke that, hey, the outsider's parents are kind of seem to be grounding them for the most part. So she does report in back to the light about the current situation, but she does end up missing a few things later down the line. Specifically, the fact that, Bart tells Jay, it's just like, I get it. With the loss of Bart and now with your recent loss of Joan, you're grieving. You don't want to see anything bad happen to anyone else. But, I'm not doing this because it's, the easy thing to do. I'm not doing this for, shits and giggles. There are kids out there who need help. And, what kind of person would I be if I didn't go out there and do my best in order to help them, to support them, to lead them into a better and brighter future? And Cassie talks things over with her mom, saying like, look, I was always going to be a target no matter what, but I'm doing this in order to help people. And this was even a whole situation in the comics as well, that, she wants to be out there helping people, doing good, fighting the good fight. This isn't a personal thing. This is because there are people out there who need inspirations and role models. And we even see this in juxtaposition to, the other members, taking out the Ivo android and his, flying legion of monkeys. And Eduardo even talks to his dad saying like, look, Dad, Papa, a lot of families are, being taken apart because of this whole situation. A lot of kids need to see that, even with some of them gaining powers against their will, they can still have families. They can still have normal lives. And we, mi familia, we are proof of that kind of thing. We're proof that, despite everything, a family can still grow and thrive and be together despite the odds. And, while Beast Boy and his team managed to get the little girl back to her father, we see that the outsiders, the entirety of the outsiders, have done their best to show that they're doing what's right. They're doing what is best to help others, no matter who they are, no matter what walk of life they come from. They are fighting the good fight and doing what's right. And so we end up seeing the footage from the whole situation, with the little girl being rescued by Beast Boy and his team, with the factory being destroyed and exploding, with G. Gordon, kind of continuing to ream into the outsiders, saying, oh, more property damage done by the reckless youths called the outsiders. And he sits down again with Lex Luthor about the whole situation, and Lex even knows that, oh, I have it on good authority that even their guardians aren't behind the whole situation with them. But, G. Gordon actually calls them out. Calls out Lex on his lack of information, showing that the outsiders' parents actually are supporting them, behind them 110%. And even when Lex Luthor had noted that, superhero registration back in the 50s was something that they should be looking into, we actually have a report from Jay Garrett nonetheless, who even noted that, hey, superhero registration didn't work out in the 50s. It certainly isn't going to work out now. With the entirety of the Flash lineage, for the most part, actually saying we are all outsiders. 3 generations of Flash, all supporting each other. And not just that, the various different people who have, who are outsiders, who are metahumans, who have allied themselves with metahumans, have all come out to, show their support to the outsiders, making the trending even harder. And when they're alone, G. Gordon is laid into by Lex Luthor, who's just like, hey, that wasn't part of the script, dude, what the hell? G. Gordon calls him out. It's just like, look, you messed up. you had faulty information and you went a little too hard into this. You've been trying too hard in order to defame the outsiders when you probably should have gone in a different direction. Something which Lex decides to take to heart for the most part. So we're gonna see where that leads soon enough. But with the bad press that Lex has gotten personally, Batman kind of let slip that this was actually more artificial than it actually seems. He actually notes that Oracle had gotten information off of the dark web about Lex Luthor owning that factory with all of his old spider bots within. So Bruce Wayne had actually disguised himself as the young father, with Miss Martian disguising herself as the daughter, and they had busted out all of Ivo's old robotic monkeys and androids and stuff with the help of Tim Drake tinkering around. Which, hey, good kudos on that callback to the fact that Tim Drake is actually a technological wizard for the most part. This kid is fabulous when it comes to technology and drones and robotics and all that kind of stuff. That's why I miss his mechanical wings in the comics, because it's just like, yeah, it shows off his tech savvy nature. But a lot of people hated on that, so whatever. But when Wonder Woman questions what would happen if, well, Lex is definitely gonna find out about this, and Batman even states, knowing and proving are two very different things, which, oof, that's a loaded statement right there if you remember that that's the same thing that Lex said. And Wonder Woman even kind of calls him out, with her really just being the moral center for a lot of this stuff, which usually should be Superman, but I kind of like having Wonder Woman be the one to call this out. Like, doesn't this bother you? All the lying, the manipulation, what you're doing. It's one thing if we're just kind of trying to, get a more positive spin, but you're full on causing massive deceptions, and what happens when that gets out? That could do more damage than anything. Doesn't that bother you? Doesn't that bother any of you? Because it really should. The way you're going about this, it's not right. And I kind of have to agree with Wonder Woman. It's one thing to get positive PR, but once you start dipping your toe into that more deceptive way of going, you open up a whole new can of worms. You open up a whole new level of problems in doing this. So I do agree with Wonder Woman in terms of this. Batman, but this is Batman's nature. He does tend to go a little too far with this kind of stuff. And we see Halo writing out this letter, more than likely ready to leave the team altogether, as she's lost everything that really gave her purpose and a connection to all of this. So you see that bonding between her and Brianna wasn't for nothing. And that's where we end our episode. So, hey, definitely tell me your thoughts on this episode in particular. How did you feel about the direction where that things went in? How did you feel about, the fact that Miss Martian has now grounded Violet from the team, that she's no longer a part of the team, and that's kind of led her down this spiral that she was already kind of very hastily going down? Who do you think Helga Jace's mentor is? And why are they trying to heal Halo? Is it really for altruistic motivations? I don't know. Seems like something deeper might be going on as well. And, I'm glad that El Dorado and his father has kind of, made up, but could we see more situations like this in terms of other heroes not getting their parents' approval? Then again, how many other characters actually have their parents prominently involved in this? Usually Tim Drake's parents are usually still involved, but they're usually out of the picture for one reason or another. And I'm glad that Jay Garrett actually had a moment. We were leading up to something with all the loss he got, because it's just like, It's unfortunate that Joan actually got fridged in order to bring his character to a specific point, but ultimately Joan doesn't survive in many in certain continuities anyway, so that's usually kind of unfortunate. I like the callbacks to Young Justice Legacy to finally get Helena in an actual episode outside of Legacy, because she had never been in the actual series proper. So that's good to see as well. But man, Violet's confession. Oof. I'm interested to see where that brings Tara, where that brings Brion, where that brings Halo, what she's about to do. What's Brion going to do now that he's learned this? And what's Tara going to do now that she's had that revelation as well? Has that doubled down her need in order to, take out the team? Or, ultimately this was the result of the light. They killed your parents. They were the ones who led into all of this. I really have to wonder where she'll go from here on out, because we're building up to something with Tara. I just hope it's not another betrayal, because I've made it known that it's just like, stop doing Judas Contract. I get it. She betrays people. Move on. Do another story with Tara. God. But, that's my thoughts and theories up until this point. There's definitely some place that they're going with Halo's character, and I don't know if it's a good one. It's hard to say, but tell me your thoughts and theories in the comment section below. Subscribe and hit the bell icon, that way you never miss out on another Young Justice Outsiders episode review. And if you want to find me on social media, just Google Duuz-Diz-Din. I'm anything but social on media, honestly. But until the next video, just remember that sometimes you really need to sit down and get things out in the open. Speak with your elders, because, hey, sometimes they might be more understanding than you'd think. Until next time, I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I've talked so much that I really need to get a cup of water. Bye-bye.